All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for joining late. So today we'll actually be using Python as a calculator. Once again, before I proceed, my name is Oluwasegun Aramide, and I would actually be taking us through the introduction to Python programming, which is actually a 5-week crash course. Okay. So let's go to our objective for today. So by the end of today's class, we should be able to differentiate between numbers, strings, and lists. Now, we should know how to use the print function and how to write and how to put to the terminal. We should be able to distinguish what a variable is and how to assign variables. And we would also be able to convert between data types, how to do strings and list index slicing, some common methods of a list, and what operators are and how operators are used with numbers, strings, and lists. So let's start with a number. What is actually a number? A number is any numerical value. It can either be an integer or a decimal. An integer is a whole number, while a decimal is also known as a float. For example, 3 is an integer, but 3.0 is a float in Python. While a string is anything that is actually in either a single quoted or a double quote. A string is anything inside a single quote or a double quote. Okay. So take for instance, if we have 4 in a quote, that makes it a string. Do you understand? And what is a list? A list, think of a list as a combination of all examples above. So we can have an integer, a float, and a string in a list. You understand? So let's start. This is 3, right? This cell can display an integer number 3. So let me run this. This is 3. Why 3.0 is actually a float, right? Now, in Python, if you want to know the data type, all you need to do is use this function type, then put whatever you want to determine inside. So now we know 3 is an integer. So if I call this function type on 3, let's see what our output will be, which is an integer, right? And if I'm doing the same thing for 3.0, I'm actually expecting to get a float as the type because 3.0 is a float. So we can see. Now let's go to basic calculation. Now, if we want to add integers together, we can add 3 to 5, and we actually expected to have 8, right? This is 8, which is an integer. If I'm adding 4.0 to 6.0, I'm expected to have 10, right? But because 4.0 is a float, 6.0 is a float, then my answer is actually going to be a float, which is 10.0. So this is we using Python as calculator. So what are we, if you're actually adding an integer to a float, it's definitely going to give us a float. Meaning adding 4 to 3.0 should give 7.0. Now, any operation involving floats and integer results in floats. Meaning if you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, so far you're having a float, then your answer is definitely going to be a float. But if I'm adding two integers together, my answer will be an integer. If I'm subtracting two integers, my answer will be an integer. But so far we have a float in the operation, then our answer will be a float. So I'm multiplying 5, which is an integer, with 6.4, then my answer is expected to be a float, right? So this is it, which is a float, 32.0. So let's do division. If you're dividing two integers together, you're definitely going to have an integer. So 9 divided by 3 will give 3 and not 3.0. Okay, so this is the sign for division. So if you want to raise 2 to the power of 3, then you would write, so to do 2 raised to the power of 3, it will be 2 star star 3. So when you have two stars, that is more or less like telling Python that you're raising it to the power of whatever follows, which is 3. So 2 raised to the power of 3 is 8. Okay. So let's do the same thing for 2 raised to the power of 2. Okay, let me do 4 raised to the power of 2. 4 raised to the power of 2, which is what? 4 times 4, which is 16. All right, so that's fine. But now, is it possible to add this is what? An integer. Why this is a string? Remember I said anything in a quotation, irrespective of the data type, is a string. So this 6 here is not an integer because it is actually in a quotation. That makes this a string. So if I'm adding 5 to a string, what will be my answer? Oh, I have a type error. Why? So what is Python actually telling us? Supported operands is for plus. I cannot add an integer to a string. Do you understand? So now let's try and fix this error. So what is the problem here? The answer lies in an error message type. So let's investigate. If I want to, what is the type of this 5? We all know that 5 is actually an integer, right? Fine. So this is of type what? This is of type string. So in Python, you cannot add an integer to a string. Either can you add a float to a string. Do you understand? So that is the reason why we're actually having an error here, because I'm actually trying to add what? An integer to a string. So if my intention is to add 5 to 6, then I actually need to remove this quotation mark. You understand? So adding 5 to 6 will give what? 11. So the question is it possible for us to add? Yes, we can add integers together. We can add floats together. But is it actually possible for us to add strings together? Yes, it is possible. But the way addition of string work is concatenating. You understand? So let's start with this. Now, earlier, remember we said anything inside a quotation mark is a string, right? Which makes this a string. So let me print this. We have hello world. All right. Now, if I'm printing this is hello. It is inside a quotation, which makes this a string, right? Now, this is word with an exclamation mark, which is also inside a quotation, which makes it a string, right? But there's actually nothing in between. This is just this is. So if I should run this, I'm actually having this. Okay. So now, is it possible for me to put a string and an integer side by side? So let's try it. It is actually not possible. Putting a string and an integer or a float side by side. So the correction is, if I want something like, let's assume my intention is to print the year is 2020. Now, the year is a string, right? But 2020 is an integer. Why? Because it is actually not in a quotation. So that is the reason why I am combining a string to with an integer, which throws up an error. Okay. So if my intention is actually to have something like the year is 2020, So this is the best way to do that. We'll say the year is. Now, I would now put this in a quotation to say 2020, meaning I'm actually representing 2020 as a string. So it is actually possible for me to what? To put a string and a string side by side, which will have this. The year is 2020. So let me put a space here. So we have this. Now, is it possible for me to add two strings together? Yes, it is actually possible. Which is so adding of strings together work in it's if you're adding a string, if you're adding two strings together, you're indirectly concatenating these two strings, meaning you're bringing string one, you're adding it to strings two, string two. Do you understand? So hello and word, adding these two together would give hello world. Now displaying a quote in a string. Now, if you want to display a quote in a string, like if you're quoting somebody, come here, Musa, Ada said. Now, come here is what Ada said. So come here is in a double quote, and so let me explain what I'm actually doing here. Let me move this down. So come here, Musa. So let me try and print this. This will give an error. Why? Because I'm not declaring it as a string. You understand? I said a string is anything in a quotation. So this is a string. So it has to be in a quotation. But a quotation can either be a single quote or a double quote, right? So if I'm using a single quote like this, it will print come here, Musa. All right. And if I'm using a double quote like this, it will still give me what? Come here, Musa. But I want it in a way that it will be a reported statement that Ada said this. So if I'm saying, come here, Musa, Ada said. Now, this Ada said is not a string. This is, so I need to make all the sentence here a string. So I'll declare this and I'll declare this. So now we'll now have it like this, which is come here, Musa, Ada said. So this is now what? In a quotation mark. Do you understand? Now, what if I have a long sentence and I want to break it into lines? So this is actually what we use in Python to break to another line. So at the point where you have this, then Python would go to the second line. So I'm having Ada, good afternoon, Musa. Meaning Ada is saying good afternoon, Musa. Then Musa is replying good afternoon, Ada. You understand? Now, this is indicating a new line. Okay. So if I print this, it will be in form of what is it called? It will be in form of a playlet. Ada is saying good afternoon, Musa, and Musa is actually responding and saying good afternoon, Ada. So let me print this. Can you see? So at this point, Python is actually initiating another line. You understand? Now, is it possible to multiply a string? Is it possible to multiply strings? Yes, it is possible. Now, as you can see, I have 2 multiplied by MA. Now, if you're multiplying a string, if you're saying 2 times 2, we have 4, right? But if you have 2 times ma, meaning you're duplicating this, you have mama. Okay? So if I have 3 times pa. Then we have what? Pa. Okay. So meaning it is actually possible to multiply string. Okay. Now, if I'm multiplying, let me try and explain this line. I'm multiplying 2 by this would give me mama. Okay. Now, this is like a space. Okay. Then I'm saying, okay, let me run this, then I will explain. Now, this is giving us what? Mama and papa. Now, instead of me writing mama here, what I did is just what? To use string multiplication. I'm writing ma once, then I'm multiplying it by 2, which will produce mama. Okay. Now, I'm adding this string to this. This is just like me declaring a space. Okay. And I'm actually adding it to another string, which is what? And. Then I'm multiplying 2 by pa, which will give papa. So now running this line of code will give us what? Mama and papa. Now, so far, everything we've actually been doing so far is what? We executing each line. But if I have this 34 plus 5 and I'm having this, what will happen? Definitely, I have two line of code, right? But Python will only print the recent one, which is Ada is 20. So let me run it and see. You can see. Meaning, but Python won't run this. It will only run the most recent. So far we have only displayed one output at a time from running a cell. What happens when we try to output multiple results in different lines? So this is actually meant to give me 39. Why this is meant to give me what? Ada is 20. But because I'm having two outputs on a line and I'm running the cell, Python will only what? Return the recent, which is this. So what happens if I want this and this, which leads to what? A print function. Now, this is actually the syntax for a print function. We have print, we have the object, then we have this sep, which is you declaring what you want to use to separate the object, and this is actually your end. Now, this file is if you want to print into a file, you understand? So let's see a function as a grinding machine that has an input and an output. You understand? So now take a look at this function machine now. You're putting in something, right? And it is giving you something. So that is just an explanation of a function. Or the mathematicians now, we know we all did mathematics in our elementary classes. So a function is, take for instance, this f of x. You're inputting something into x, and you're definitely having a value for whatever you're inputting in the function, right? So that is just an explanation of what a function is. So, the first time here, I have 34 plus this, then I have Ada is 20. But because I'm actually not using a print function and I'm executing the cell, Python will only return what? The recent line. Okay. But if I'm actually declaring a function, a print function on the line, then I'm saying print Ada is a boy, then print Amina is a girl. If I should run this cell, then I'll have what? Ada is a boy, Amina is a girl. Okay. So let me copy this and let me come here and say, so if I'm actually interested in having this and this, what I will just do is what? I'll put this in a print function so that Python would what? Execute this and also come here to say print. I'm putting it in a print function. So let's run. Now, Python is returning what? 34 plus 5. The figure, the answer, which is 39. Okay. And is also what? Giving me Ada is 20, which is what? So a print function returns whatever you input in it. So I'm imputing 34 plus 5, which is 39. And I'm also imputing Ada is 20. Ada is a string. Then 20 is another string. And I've explained earlier that it's actually possible to what? To put two strings side by side, but you cannot put an integer or a float with a string, right? Now we have seen that we can actually print multiple outputs on the same cell. Now let's see what the other arguments of the print function do. So this is hello world. Then I'm saying separate. I'm declaring this. This is actually the syntax. This is the object. This is the sep. Okay. So I'm declaring the sep as a space. So separate all these objects with a space. And I'm saying the end is an exclamation mark. So let me print this. I have this. Okay. So now let's play around with this as well. Let's say print hello. Then I'm declaring another object, another string, sorry, which is world. Okay. And I'm saying I want to declare the separation parameter. So here I used what? A space. So let me use plus. Okay. Then what should be the end? End is what? Let me use full stop. Okay. So let me run this. So I have hello world, hello, which is this, but I'm declaring the separator parameter to be plus. So that is the reason why we have plus plus. You understand? And I'm saying use full stop to end the line. So here, if I'm saying use, what can I use? Oh, let me use a question mark. Okay. And here, let me use a space to separate. So I will have what? Hello world. I think, do you understand? So I've actually explained this object. This is the object here, hello and the world. That's the string. Then this separator parameter is, you can use anything, but by default, it is a space. You understand? If you're not declaring end, by default, it is a, what is it called? It's actually going to another line if you're not declaring this. So let's see. Why? If I'm declaring, sorry, if I'm declaring this file is saying I can print this out. Meaning if the object is like hello world, this is the separator parameter, this is me declaring the end. This file is me declaring where I want the print function to print into. So if I'm not declaring this file, then I would have it as an output. But if I want to print inside a file, then I would actually declare the file. So now let's see. I'm opening this file as what? File text. Now I'm printing append only inside the file. FP is what? This file. I'm declaring FP to be this file, meaning I'm opening this file, file.txt. Then I'm printing append me only inside this file because why? I am declaring the file to be FP. So what will happen? You're definitely not going to see anything because I'm printing this inside this file. So now let me now see what has happened. You can see I'm opening this file, which is this. So let me open it. You can see append me only because I ran this thrice. Okay. So you can also print inside a file, which is just what I did here. Okay. So now, if you want to print by preserving the format, then this is what you need to do. Do you understand? Now, let me print this. Now, you see, it is keeping the format in which the object is written. Okay, so for clearer understanding, let me do something like this print. Then I will have what? Three quotation mark like this, then three quotation, double quotation mark like this. So let me say my my name is Aramide. I am a Nigerian. You understand? Now, if I'm using a double quotation like this, I am a double quotation three, then I'm closing it with three. What this would do is what it will actually what preserve the format. So I'm not using separator, neither am I using end. I just want it like this. So it will print it as it will just give me the exact way in which I've actually declared it because it will preserve what the format. So my name is Aramide. I am a Nigerian. Okay. So that is that on print function. So let's go to variables. What is a variable? A variable is used to store data. Okay. And a variable is created the moment you assign a value to it. You understand? So let's start with our first variable. Now, this name is a variable. Okay. I'm declaring, meaning you're using it to save data. You're using it to store something. You're using it to store a value. So I'm saying my name is Ayo, meaning I'm assigning Ayo to name. Now, this name is storing Ayo. Do you understand? So I am assigning Nwachukwu to surname. So surname is now a variable, name is a variable. And now this is me assigning a string to this. Nwachukwu is a string, right? I'm assigning it to surname. Age, I'm declaring age as a variable and I'm assigning it to 15, which is an integer. I'm declaring weight as a variable and I'm assigning it to what? 45.7. This is a list. A list is you can have a string, okay? But this is what differentiates a list. Now, anything inside this square bracket is saying my interest is football, video game, and this. So in order to separate values in a list, we use comma. Okay. So we are using comma to separate values in a list. So these are variables. So let me run it. So now nothing happened. Why? Because what I did is just me assigning a value to a variable. I've actually not done anything. So the only thing I've done is just to assign a value to a variable. So now let's play around with it. Now I want to play around by using the print function. I'm saying print name. Okay. Now, anytime I call name now, what the system will print is Ayo because I've assigned Ayo to name. So name is type name. Now, and as I said earlier, that if you want to know the data type, you call the function type on it. So I'm saying name is this, surname is a type. I'm calling type on this, meaning I want to know the type. I'm calling type on H. You understand? So let's see. So the output, IO is, this is it. IO is now stored as name. Data type of name is what? Data type of surname, which is Onwachuku, is a string. Now, age, 15 is, age is, I'm declaring age. So if I'm calling the function type on age, I'm there. 4.5 is a float. So I'm calling type on weight because weight is storing this. Then I'm having what? A float. But interest, this is a list. So calling type function on interest, I have what? A list. Okay. So let's run this. Oh, I have an error. So what happened? Full name is a string, right? I'm adding it to this, which is what? Name is what? A name is a string, okay? And surname is a string. Do you understand? So this would work because you can concatenate, you can add two strings together, and that's the reason why we have what? Full name, Ayo Nwachuku. Okay. But let's try and interpret what the error is. Oh, the error is even here. The age is. Now, this is me concatenating. I'm adding age is an integer. That is the reason why I'm having this error because I cannot add an integer to a string. You understand? It is not possible. You cannot add to a string, but you can what? You can add string and string. You can add integer and integer. You can add integer and float. Do you understand me like that? So, oh, there is an error there. Let's remember why it is called add. Now, when you're on a string, you are concatenating it. And it is actually not integer or a float with a string. So in order to fix this error, we have two ways, two options. And option one is by either converting the integer to a string or just leaving it like, okay, using this comma. You understand? Let me allow the separator parameter, which is space, to work. Now use print function and allow the separator parameter default value to separate the item. What I did here was what? Me trying to use add, but I cannot add to an integer. Do you understand? So if I want it to come out in this form, age is 1534, and I am not interested in converting this age to a string, then I will just do away with the add because add is concatenating a string to an integer or a float. It's me converting it to a string. Do you understand? Now, I'm using this function string to convert weight. Weight is what? Weight is a float. You understand? So, because I want to use plus, I need to convert, which is a float, to a string. Now, this would work. And the reason why this is working is because I've converted this to a string. Index 1 is what? Video, while index 2 is swimming. Okay. But this interest has only index 0, 1, and 2, right? There's no index 3. So what happens if I print index 3? Now, because interest doesn't have index 3, then would have an error because the least index is out of range. The maximum index in which interest has is 2, sorry. So we printing an index minus 5 is the same thing. You understand? So let me come here and say, let me, so let's it is minus 1. Then the second to the last till you get to the first list. Do you understand? So now let's try and play with it. The list item in the list, the last item in the list of the interest supplied by which is Ayo is this. So let's print this. So the last item, so now we can see here that age is what? An integer, right? Weight is a float, name is a string, and surname is a string, while interest what is a list. So now I want to convert this age to a float. What will I do? And I'm assigning it to what? A variable called age as float. So now I'm printing age as float, and I've converted this 15, which is formerly an integer, to a float. Okay. Now this is what? A float. Now I'm converting it to an integer. So what happens? I'm calling an int function on weight, and I'm assigning it to a variable called weight as int. I'm what? Printing. So now, weight is still a float. Weight as float, this is it. Then this is weight as weight is a variable that holds 4.45.7, while weight as integer is a variable that holds what? The conversion of this to an integer, right? So let's run and let's see. So what happens? It has converted 45.7 as what? Integer. So what int does when converting a float to an integer is it will truncate the decimal part and ignore. It won't round up, it won't round down. Most times it will round down, so to say, because it will just truncate the decimal parts and just give what? It will truncate the decimal part and just return the 45. Like what happened here is just truncate this point 7 and give us the 45. Okay. So what if I convert? Can I convert integers and float to string? Yes, you can. And what you need to do is what? To run this and this. Do you understand? Now to call a function string on the age and call a function string on the weight. This is an integer, while this is a float. So I'm assigning it to what? Age string and weight string. Now, printing this, I have 15 and 47 have been converted to string, and we are able to concatenate them. Now, you see, this is what? This is now a string. And the reason why this converted the age to a string and I've converted the weight to a string. But if I have not converted, let me change this to age. And let me change this to age because weight is still a float, while age is what? Is an integer. If I should run this, it will give an error. Why? Because I cannot add a an integer to this using plus. So I need to what? I need to convert to a string for this to work. Okay. So now the type before conversion to int. So this is the type before converting. Now, now I'm converting it back to int. So let's see. So now I've converted it back. This is the type H string. Now I'm saying H string is this. Okay. Now, meaning H string to integer, then weight string to float. You understand? Now I'm calling this type function on it to decide, to check what is the type of the new variable now. So now the type of the new variable here is a float because I've converted this. I'm printing this weight to float, which has been converted using this float function. That's the reason why I have a float here. Okay, okay. So now let's go index slicing. Okay. So now I'm storing COVID-19. COVID-19 now is a string, right? I'm saving it as pandemic. Pandemic is a variable. This is a string. Now I can decide to set in Python so which is what um I would explain here. Pandemic is a variable storing COVID-19. So this is it, COVID-19. C is index 0. Indexing in Python starts from index 0, 0, 1 like that. Okay, so if you want to slice, you if you want to slice a string, okay, you call this is pandemic, which is a variable, then the start index and the end index. Do you understand? So let's do a practical now. This is COVID-19 and this is the index. C is 0, 1, 2, and so on. So I'm interested in if I'm interested in now this is pandemic, okay? So I'm coming. So this is how we slice pandemic. So this double column is the end. Do you understand? But if I did not specify any value, then I'm not specifying the beginning, which is the start, and I'm not specifying the end, then Python will give me every I'm not specifying the start and I'm not specifying the end. Do we understand? But let's assume I am interested in having COVID. Like I want to slice COVID out of COVID-19. In Python, the end now, you know, C is 0, O is 1, V is 2, I is 3, D is 4, 0. But if you're specifying the end index, Python will start, if you're specifying the start index, Python will start on, but if you're specifying an end index, meaning if I'm interested in slicing COVID out of COVID-19, now if I'm declaring my start to be 0 and I'm declaring my end to be 4, then Python would give me what? The output will be COVID because it will stop a step before the end, which is 3. So if I'm really, really interested in getting COVID, then because D is index 4, my end should be 5 because if I'm specifying my end index to be 5, then Python will stop a step before 5, which will give me D, which is actually what I'm interested in. So now what if I'm interested in just this hyphen? How can I slice hyphen out of COVID-19? Meaning my start is definitely going to be 5, okay? But what would be my end index? My end index would be 6. If I'm specifying 6, does not mean that pipe top is 10. So if I'm interested in so let me go through this. So we can also extracting hyphen, okay? My start will be 5, right? Will be my end index will be 6 as I've explained. So this should give me hyphen. So what will I do if I'm specifying, if I want to slice out 19? 1 is index 6, right? While 9 is, so is either I come here and say 6 and 7. But note, if I'm declaring 7, Python will stop a step before. So if I should run this, I'm definitely going to have just 1, because 7 is actually index 9, but Python will stop a step before. So what can I do? Is either I add 8 to this so that Python can take 6 and 7, or I don't declare the end at all. Let me comment this out. So if you are not specifying the end, then if you are not specifying the end index, then Python will start from this and run through the end. Do you understand? So you can either choose to either declare your end index or not. If you are not declaring the starts and you are not declaring the end, then Python gives you everything in the parameter. Start and the end. Python would start from where the start index is, but stop a step before. Okay. And we can also use negative indexing. Okay. Now, negative indexing, as I've said, the same thing with the list is this from here, -1, -2, -1. So if I'm interested in COVID, my start will be -8 and my end will be what? -3, because I want it to stop a step before this, which is -4. So I'll pick -3. Okay. And it is the same thing as none is, I'm not specifying the start, but I'm specifying the end index, which is -3. So if I print this, they both will give us COVID. You understand? So let's go to list slicing. Okay. Now, this is a list 0, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to this list. I'm saving it as a variable called number list. That's num list. Okay. Now I want to slice the first 10. Now this is even going to be a bit easier because the first one is 0. So if I'm slicing, I'm not specifying the start, but I'm specifying the end index. The end index here is 10. Okay. So Python will start us, we can use with list. We have append. And what does append does? Append will an item, add an item to the end of the list. You understand? So if I have a list and I want to add something to the list and I'm using append, then append will add whatever I'm appending to the end of that list. Extend, if you're using an extend, then extend the list by appending all the items in the iterable. Now, if you're using insert, you can use insert by inserting an item at a given position, the first argument in the index of the element before which to insert. So a dot insert 0, x, insert at the front of a list, and this, okay, now let me explain. So if you're explaining, let me explain the difference between append and inserting to the last of the list. Or you can use insert to specify the position. So if I'm adding 4 to this number list and I'm using append, then here would have 19, 4. Do you understand? Because here I would add 4. So if I'm using append, then the last one here will be 4. But if I want to specify the position, okay, if I'm specifying the position, then I will use insert. This first value, which is high, is me specifying the position, and this x is what I want to add to that x. What I'm actually adding to the list is the x, while high is the position in which I want this x to take. which is a method, remove the first whose value is 1, 1. If I have like 4, 1, if I have 4x and I use remove x, okay, it will remove the first x in that list, okay. And if I'm using pop, it will I, okay, remove the item at the, so I'm removing Mary Kay powder, which is index 3, coming, okay, multiplying it by 2, you're duplicating it twice, all right. The same thing as, but this is an integer, right? If you're multiplying it by 2, you have what? 68. Now 34 multiplied by 2 is 68. Okay, so let's go to addition. Is it possible to add two lists? Yes. If you're adding lists, it's more or less like you're concatenating two lists. You understand? So this is the output 135, 135. It works as me concatenating. But a string is declared as happy, right? So if I add two strings together, it works the same way concatenating. I will have happy, happy. All right. But a number is an integer. Okay. So if I'm adding a number which is an integer to an integer, then 8. Is it possible to subtract a string? And is it possible to divide a string? Is actually not possible. So let's see. It will throw up an error. This is a list. So let's start with a list. If I have a list minus a list, I would have an error because you cannot subtract a list like this. It's not supported. Same thing as this. It is not supported. You can only add, and adding two strings together is like concatenating. So you have happy happy. So we've actually come to the end of today's class. If you have any question, you can just post it in the classroom. Your questions would be attended to. I would be posting the link to this notebook so that we can all go through it. And if you have any question as